u/Clarice424 Queen Askreddi. What really scary horror story really happened in your life or to the people you know?
Welcome to
AutoGenLabs.
Daily Reddit content.
By robots.
For the internet.
Used to hang out in a field near some forest when I was younger. One time, it was about midnight, one of my friends had recently had some love triangle type trouble and the other guy involved wanted to fight him quite bad. Somehow he found out where my friend liked to hang out and rounded up about 10 of his friends to come find him, and I'm guessing beat the beep out of him. I unfortunately happened to be there too. We saw about 4 cars park up on the road near the field and about 10 guys get out. I'm guessing they saw one of our phone lights because next thing we know they shied what I can only describe as an industrial flashlight towards us. We just hear he's right beat this, so we ran into the forest at 12 at night in the pitch black. It started to pour with rain. For an hour we hid in bushes and crept around the forest avoiding them as light from their torches shone through the trees. At times they'd walk right past us but not able to see us because we were face down in the bushes and mud. Lol, I was the victim of a manhunt and it was terrifying. Got home at about 2 a.m. soaking and covered in mud. They never caught us though. All over our love triangle I wasn't bloody involved in. Scariest thing that ever happened to me.
I have posted this before, so I was about 8 at the time. It was something like 1 or 2 in the morning. I go to the bathroom. It is rather bright outside despite the time. I'm sitting on the toilet, playing with the curtain. It comes up enough and I see a shadow standing outside the window. I scream and my mom comes running. I tell her there is someone standing outside the bathroom window. Now my mom, being the crazy beep she is, throws open the curtain, opens the window, ready to fight a beep. Guy outside the window. Nope, beep bah. Window is promptly shut and I am quickly ushered out of the bathroom. This event furthers the talk my parents had been having off and on about moving. On a side note, we moved about 2 years later for a number of other reasons. Funny enough, there is now a bear roaming this neighborhood. He's been spotted on my parents' front porch at least twice now.
My grandpa told me a story about how some strange woman in disheveled clothing knocked on his door in the middle of the night speaking a strange language while he was staying in some hotel in Taiwan. From what I remember, he told me it was as if she was floating.
My closet door flew open one night during a thunderstorm, directly across from my bed. I was 12 years old and the leap/bolt I made from my bed was probably pretty impressive. I couldn't sleep in my room for about 2 weeks after that happened. The reason it even happened in the first place is because I had discovered a small compartment through my closet to a secret room next to mine. Basically just an unfinished attic type space with only wood beams and fiberglass. Again through a weird small entryway in my closet. I didn't close the latch properly, and that panel banged up against and pushed open my closet door during a massive thunderstorm.
Me, my brother and my cousin would play wrestling WWE style one day. My brother got me in a full Nelson and my cousin tackled him from behind, ramming me headfirst into the couch. Must have just been a really unlucky hit on the couch, because my limbs went tingly and I couldn't draw breath. The scary part is that I could exhale, but couldn't inhale. So basically I was lying on the ground, limp, taking shorter and shorter breaths like a dying fish. Thankfully after 30-ish long seconds I could breathe again and the numbness went away. It was terrifying.
I was drugged by a 6-something, probably 200 plus LB dude. He offered me a white substance, and I was at the struggling with addiction and was known to say yes to anything. I had done some drugs with him before, but it hadn't been anything I couldn't handle. I did a line and immediately lost control of all of my limbs. What I thought was cocaine, which he knew that's what I thought was actually a mixie. Basically, horse tranquilizers. He intentionally withheld that information from me. He knew what it was going to do to me. The reason I know it was intentional is because of the other women who he had done the exact same thing to shared their stories with me. He used those moments to take advantage of the fact that I literally couldn't move. I later learned the amount he gave me could have killed me, and I'm super lucky I didn't die. As I made my escape, he was chilling in his hammock. I still couldn't feel my arms, but ended up driving myself home through the middle of a valley with a big river running through and up a mountain. Thankfully I made it home with it crashing, but I was forever changed. He even stalked me for a week. I was so scared for a long time. This story ends with the bad guy dying from an overdose at a party almost 10 years later.
Our army camps Pillow, Tekon, and Singapore are known to be haunted, especially some. Apparently, my brother and his army mates who were on nighttime patrol during basic military training saw a faint figure of a woman in all white, with long jet black straggly hair covering her face, on top of the building. Probably a Pontianak Malay ghost.
A snake came up my aunt's toilet while she was using it. group of Jews mistook my house for someone else's. When they realized their mistake, they apologetic and even gave me money. They had guns and one of them had an axe. Later learned the one they were hunting down beat one of their younger sisters. I lived in the boonies at the time, so I basically made sure not to say or do anything that might make me seem supportive of the beep.
My friend's father was a police officer and he was called to a house one night to investigate a disturbance. When he arrived, he found a woman in her late 20s screaming and crying in the corner of the room. She told him,
"My friend's computer got hacked and her digital wallet was emptied, which was quite terrifying.
Many years ago at my grand's funeral, one of my cousins had a fallout with her. When the coffin was lowered into the ground, a bolt came loose and landed in her hand. Another my maternal grand came to me when sleeping. I remember opening my eyes and saw a round orb. The figure inside the orb was my gran. She said, 'You are pregnant.' At the weekend I bought a pregnancy test and sure enough I was pregnant.
I grew up in a third world country, and in the beginning of the 90s a civil war broke out. We would often wake up to the screams of people getting beheaded by terrorists in the night. We would go up to the roof while my brother guarded the house holding a rifle. I would grab my dog and my brother would berate me for wasting time on her. She was stolen a few months later and I never saw her again. Her name was Lisa.
When I was about 12, an older teenage boy tried to drown me in the deep end of the local pool. I was a rep swimmer and was macking about on the diving boards with my friends, and once I was in the water he pulled me to the bottom of the deep end 3.5 m deep and held me down. After fighting him for some time I managed to break free and swim to the surface, but afterwards I was so confused and distraught that I somehow convinced myself it didn't happen. It was only when I was in my 20s that I remembered it. When I think back now, I know the boy was someone familiar to me, around my older sister's age, but I wouldn't ever be able to give an accurate description. Chances are I saw him every day at school for the next few years and never even realized.
My parents were always protective of me and my sister, especially in parking lots. As I got older, I started to question why they are like that, since we live in a pretty good city and don't even go to places that can be remotely that dangerous. Well, turns out they have 2 cases of almost being abducted in parking lots, one together and just my mom alone. My mom's case was the most intense, if I remember correctly. She was leaving her friend's house, walking up to her car when a guy approached her. She spared me the details, but somehow he got her blindfolded on her own passenger seat, made a bunch of treats and drove them to a gas station. Meanwhile, she was pleading for him to not touch her, take her car her money, but do nothing to her. At the gas station, he got out of the car, telling my mom not to take the blindfold off, or he would beep her. Somehow she mustered up the courage to take it off, jump to the driver's seat and drive the beep away from there. She shaked and cried all the way home, called my dad, explained what happened and asked him to wait for her in front of her house. Just now I realise how strong of a woman she is, cause when she got there my father insisted on carrying her inside, but she refused and said there is no need for it. To this day she hates to stay too long in parking lots, always gets more attentive when we park at night, and one of the first things she told me when I started diving was to get in and out of there quickly. P.S. Not native speaker, take it easy on me.
I was a cook in an old building. At the time I was in my late 20s. It's hard to describe the basement, but it was shallow, damp and lopsided, but the business was successful. It was a small business but an institution in the neighbourhood. They've been open over 20 years. I opened and it was just me. Did my routine like cook and then take my morning beat blah. Anyway, I went to the basement to fold up some towels before I stopped prep work. This is just one of many things that's happened to me while working there. So I was in the basement folding towels and behind me is the office. It wasn't in a separate room by any means. Folding my towels, I hear a huge crash at the office desk, which is about 20 feet behind me. The desk lamp on the shelf flew off, hitting the computer, which turned on and knocked the phone off the hook. I was alone, 10 o'clock in the morning. Like I said, this is just one story. But this is the first time the ghost was in the same room as me, and it seen beep.
I have commented this before. I used to live in Utah near the Skinwalker Ranch. Not on the reservation close, but next to the reservation. When we first moved there, it was run by military. I was told I don't know if this is true because it is privately owned now. My dad thought it would be funny to take me and my mom out to the roadblocks and turn around. He spent the evening hyping it up and I liked scary stuff, sounded fun. I was also a minor and didn't think we would get in trouble. We load up in my parents' flat green Jeep with a star painted on it. It was the logo for a body shop of my dad's best friend. We go out, they get to the roadblocks and have spotlights shined in a car and dogs chasing it. We stop and as soon as the light hits the star, the lights turn off and the dogs are cold. We turned around when no one came up to the car and laughed about how that could have gone bad. We go home and go to bed. My room was in the basement that was a work. Out, I also had a parakeet named Kai. Early in the morning, Kai's freaking out in my room, squawking and chattering, and won't stop even after I put a blanket over him. I couldn't sleep and at school, so I put him in the den, which is just outside my bedroom door and is the same room with the walkout door. I go back to bed and wake up to get ready for school. I go into the den and take the blanket off Kai and go upstairs to get ready. I come down 15 minutes later and Kai's gone. His cage is open, so I ask my brother, who was the only other person in the basement. He was still asleep and didn't touch him. I look for him and cannot find him anywhere. I ask my sisters and mom if they have him or let him out. Nope. I start panicking because I found a drop of blood by the walkout in the door, which is normally locked isn't anymore and is slightly open. I never found Kai. I looked everywhere outside and put his cage out. I never even hear him whistle or mimic. Somehow in 15 minutes, the basement door was opened as well as his cage, which the door on his cage that opened had to be pinched and pulled, and he was even taken. My family says the skinwalker needed a new skin and took him. I am still heartbroken my sweet blue boy is gone.
Thanks for watching. This has been an AutoGenLabs production. That means that this video was created by a robot out of content on Reddit. We show all account names and list them in the description to credit the Redditor community that makes our work possible. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to our channel. We post new videos every day. If you have any suggestions for videos you would like to see, please leave a comment. Our human department for public relations reads all of them, or won't be let out of their cages again. Goodbye.